Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, opposition MPs walk out on the South African president. Jacob Zuma complains about being given a hard time, but the question of how the 74-year-old got a 20-year, $500,000 loan has stirred up more controversy over his leadership. Also, it's a short-lived return to school in Abidjan as pupils are sent home by protesting teachers. Staff says that they won't start classes until the new 5-day working week's returned to the 4 that they're used to. And we head to Guinea, where the once-dazzling reputation of a dance troupe is now struggling to rise again. The Ballets Africains was world famous at its peak, but a lack of funding has chipped away at the morale and reputation of its dancers. Well, first, on Tuesday, South Africa's president complained of being given a rough ride by Parliament and asked the House Speaker to keep opposition abuse in check. Jacob Zuma was addressing lawmakers a day after confirming that he'd taken out a loan to pay back over $500,000 to the Treasury as a partial reimbursement of the $16 million in state cash spent on doing up his private home. The repayment was ordered by the Constitutional Court. Opposition members of the EFF still want him to resign and walked out on their leader.
We are not prepared to listen to this criminal, but we'll wait outside. When the criminal finishes speaking, we are coming back to continue with the business of this parliament. We are just going to the loo because we are avoiding the criminal. We'll come back when the criminal is gone.
So, despite the roasting, Zuma did try to present a positive economic outlook for the country. But those political grumblings were never far behind. Jane Flanagan tells us more about how the backlash over his loan hampered Zuma's parliamentary performance.
He only paid back the money because he had to, because the opposition parties went to court and won a ruling that said he had to. And so the matter of trust that swirls around him really is not going anywhere. Remember that last month the ANC suffered their worst drubbing in the polls since democracy began in South Africa 22 years ago, and Zuma is largely blamed for that. I think questions now are beginning to be asked about how is it that a 72-year-old man was given a 20-year mortgage loan on an amount of money which is half his presidential salary. He is not going to be president for much longer. 2019 is when he's likely to step down, if it's not sooner. And so this issue is not going anywhere, even if he has paid back some of the money.
Now, Zuma also tried to brush aside on Tuesday market fears about the economy. South Africa's been having a pretty hard time of it. He did manage to squeeze out some perhaps surprisingly upbeat news on that front.
Well, I think the market is looking at one person, and that's Pravin Gordhan, the finance minister. You may recall that in December, Jacob Zuma sacked his very respected finance minister and replaced him with a virtual unknown. And this was seen as part of something that's become known in South Africa as state capture, and another very, very sinister level of the corruption that has become endemic in South Africa. And Pravin Gordhan, who was instated then by Zuma to bring matters to some more stability, is seen as a safe pair of hands. However, Zuma very much has him in his sights. There is talk that he faces arrest himself, the finance minister, over what would inevitably trumped up charges. But because he's so respected, the market looked to him. And while Pravin Gordhan is in charge of South Africa's economy, then the market will stay firm and rely on him to keep things on track. Jacob Zuma very much wants to present himself as an ally of Pravin Gordhan. Pravin Gordhan, on the other hand, wants to make it quite clear that he has the president at arm's length and is keeping a very watchful eye on him.
Jane Flanagan there for us. Time now for some news in brief. Staying in South Africa, it's banned a US pastor from visiting because of his homophobic hate speech. Stephen Anderson has welcomed fatal attacks on gay communities in the past. The South African government's used anti-discrimination laws to ban him from entering indefinitely. The country became the first in Africa to legalize gay marriage in 2006, although the relationships are still taboo. Anderson has said he'll still be heading to Botswana. Zambia's president was sworn in for his new mandate Tuesday after divisive elections. The results of the August polls were challenged by Edgar Lungu's rival, but rejected by the Supreme Court this week. As he took office, Lungu called on the country to put old scores aside. Delays in swearing him in have contributed to hold-ups in restarting key budget discussions with the International Monetary Fund. The Islamic State group has claimed its supporters are behind an attack in Mombasa over the weekend. It appears to be the first statement of responsibility of an assault on Kenyan soil made by the group. The raid saw 3 women shot dead after they tricked their way into a police station. Libya's government of national accord's been dealt a fresh blow. Forces opposed to it on Tuesday claimed to have seized the port of Brega in the north and now say they control the entire Oil Crescent region. Fighters backing General Khalifa Haftar have been moving through installations since Sunday. Haftar supports a parliament that rivals the internationally recognized GNA's authority. It's back to school for more than 3 million children in Ivory Coast, but the return hasn't gone smoothly for everyone. The country's main teachers' unions are against new regulations that extend teaching in primary schools from 4 days to 5 days a week. The government says the additional Wednesday morning classes will help improve educational outcomes for kids. Our correspondent sent us this report.
For these students in Abidjan, it was a short-lived return to school. Lessons had only just begun before they ended. Pupils left the classroom, called upon to do so by teachers protesting against their new 5-day working week.
We are primary school teachers, and we've been told now to work on Wednesdays. We will protest until they totally and utterly retract this hostile maneuver.
The majority of schools in Abidjan were open as usual. But despite being back at the blackboard, teachers' unions say they are totally against this reform. Until now, many teachers use the day off to give private paid tuition. The move has divided opinion amongst parents.
If there was school on Wednesdays, that would allow children to develop intellectually and have more time to work at school.
Wednesday would tire the kids out. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, no, it would be too tiring.
But the government isn't budging. Despite the resistance and the protests, they say primary school children and teachers must work a little harder.
We are working in the interest of our children. We are doing this so that they can succeed. We are doing this to improve our education provision so that we can have a competitive system, so that our children can compete with children from anywhere in the world.
The Ivorian government admits relatively short teaching hours and lack of classroom equipment has set students back. Ivorian educational results are some of the lowest in the region. But with this reform, the government hopes they'll be a step closer to making better grades.
And finally, once the pride of Africa's dance scene, Guinea's Ballets Africains has seen its star fall since it began in the early 1950s. Aging acrobats and singers are training a new generation, but a lack of resources means that it's facing a very uncertain future.
They are the latest generation of a Ghanaian dance troupe that used to travel worldwide. It was called the African Ballet and was created in the early 1950s. The troupe was highly successful until the death of Guinea's first president, Sékou Touré, in 1984. His successor, Lansana Conté, was less interested in art and stopped funding the dancers. Today, they are still struggling financially.
Nowadays, it's hard because during the First Republic, we were paid by the state. Now we're working with young people who aren't being paid, except when we do shows in some places. The little we earn, we give it to them.
The Culture Ministry has promised to start a new funding program, but for now the troupe has to rehearse in the National Assembly. Some of the dancers are disillusioned.
When we go to America or France, we are well received, not like here. When we go to another country, the African ballet is admired.
But the older dancers still like to pass on their knowledge to the younger generation.
We are still here. Ballet is still going strong. We have passion running through our veins. Many young people are here. They are volunteers.
The troupe is comprised of dancers and musicians. Their common goal is for Guinea's African ballet to be as famous and successful as its predecessor more than 30 years ago.
That's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.
You Are Here, your programme spotlighting French heritage.
Versailles, the Louvre and the Mont Saint-Michel are all well-known stars of French heritage. But French genius and France harbors many other hidden treasures. The arts, gastronomy, architecture, as well as nature's wonders. Come along with France 24 and discover France's living heritage. From young apprentices to accomplished craftsmen, farmers to Michelin star sporting chefs, meet these people whose passion for their professions preserve and drive French heritage.
You Are Here on France 24 and France24.com.